What is going on, my people? We are live here on YouTube. Glad to see every single one of y'all. Come on in, come on in. Today is going to be about taking your PEAT results and turning that into a pass. So if you're looking to develop a really effective study plan to be guiding you all the way to dominating this NPTE, you're in the right place at the right time. We'll call this small wins, big score. All right. And I'm going to be teaching you the ITM method. All right. So get ready for that. Again, if you're a first timer, you are a person that have struggled with the NPTE in the past, maybe you failed it before, this is your go-to. All right. So we're going to be using our PEAT. So if you've taken a PEAT before, get ready to utilize it and take notes. All right. Let's jump into it. I think before we even get started today, it's super important for you to understand who I am as your coach today, and then who's going to be like really talking to you and giving you this method, right? And so for those of you unfamiliar with me, my name is Dr. Kyle Rice. My students call me Coach K. I am the founder of the PTSL. I've been coaching students for over 12 years now on how to pass this NPTE. And a little bit of background story about myself. I grew up in Florida, where standardized testing just wasn't my thing. I was awful at standardized testing. I don't know about you, but coming up there used to be this thing called the FCAT that you needed to pass, and I did awful on that. SATs, ACTs, you name it, I just wasn't doing well. And one of the worst parts was seeing all my classmates pass me by, go to these big universities and all of that stuff that I could never get into because I just wasn't getting the scores that I wanted. I actually was on a trajectory to go to medical school. However, you have to take this exam called the MCAT to get into medical school. So I'm studying for that thing. The first time, awful score, bottom 10% of the nation. With the MCAT, right? And I take it again, I take it again, I take it again. And no matter how many times I took it, this exam was telling me that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't capable, I wasn't able to keep up. And I took it a total of 5 times. I never could get past it. Like, I literally have failed every standardized test I've ever taken. And a lot of my family members are physical therapists, or at least in the healthcare profession. So I decided to go into PT school, and the doors were wide open for me. This was an experience. I was like, all right, I go right into PT, and I love it. I mean, when I got into school, I absolutely loved it. I was like, why wasn't I doing this from the beginning and thinking about this from the beginning? Loved it. Well, as we got through PT school and I was getting towards the 3rd year, I heard about this thing called the NPTE. Right? And I heard that it was this standardized exam, this licensure exam you had to pass in order for you to become what? Licensed, right? So in my mind, I'm like, I failed every single standardized exam I've ever taken. Now I'm going to be at a place where I'm $150,000 in debt, not able to pass this NPTE, and be stuck. And again, all my classmates are going to pass me by, showing me that I wasn't good enough, all of these different things. And so I decided that I was going to go all in. None of my classmates were going to start studying this early because they were like, oh, that's crazy. Let's wait till the final 10 weeks, 8 weeks. But I was like, no, I have to do things different. And so I started about 14 months away from my NPTE. I got every review course, every review book. I bought it all. Absolutely everything, because I was like, I got to pull out all the stops to make sure I pass, right? So along the way, I was getting 45% on therapy eds, 47% on therapy ed. Just doing absolutely like awful. And one particular day, I came across a book about standardized testing, and it was opening me up to this new world called like holistic prep, where it was focusing on more than just content stuff, right? And it was opening me up to this new approach. And so I adopted it. I went all in. It was even teaching you how to do really well with content. Well, let me fast forward. So I get ready for the NPTE. I've been preparing through clinicals, all of that for 14 months. I walk into the NPTE, head held high, confident, and y'all, I pass it. Hold on. About 10 days later, they send you your score report for absolutely free, and they tell you what score you got. You wouldn't believe. I got a perfect 800. And a perfect score, somebody who went from the bottom 10%, never passed the standardized exam, never did well, to now getting a perfect score. It was one of the most triumphant moments of my life. And since then, I've had a calling to help people who struggle with standardized tests or who fail the NPTE, help them to dominate the exam, helping them to really overcome this major obstacle. And so to date, I've helped over 20,000 physical therapists with our resources, podcasts, all these different things, but been able to one-on-one help over 1,000 physical therapists pass the NPTE, one-on-one. All right. And so I've been doing this for over the past 12 years, studying this game, studying people who fail, studying people who pass to figure out what is the best way, the way with the least amount of burnout, the least amount of stress to pass this NPTE. How can we make it happen? And like I said, I'm a specialist in helping people who fail the exam turn that thing around into a pass. And today, I want to help you take a PEAT, which a lot of us don't pass the first time we take it. So whether you're a first-time taker or if you've taken this NPTE before, you may be seeing that you're not getting good scores on the PEAT. You're not alone. You may feel stuck, and a lot of us do get stuck, but there is a way that you get through this, but also raise that score to a pass. It is possible for you, and walk into the NPTE confident. So I call that the ITM method. It's something that I founded over the past 12 years, and it's a way you can use your PEAT to reduce burnout, fatigue, stress, but also raise your score, build confidence, and walk into the NPTE with peace. All right, so here it is, ITM method. Let's break it down, pull out your notes, classes in session. Here it is right here. Identify point potentials to achieve steady improvement of 3 to 5% on practice exams. And we're gonna go deep into each of these. So the I stands for identify point potentials. I'll tell you a bit about what that is. T stands for target principles instead of these random details that are burning you out right now. And then last but not least is to master the concepts instead of memorizing, which is so attractive to memorize it, but then you're not able to retain it, recall it for the actual exam. All right, so we're going to talk all about these three: identify, target, and master. And this is what we can use to set you up to pass this NPTE. Now, before I go any further, one of the things that my coach told me that really sticks is like good physical therapists are the ones who learn from their mistakes. Do you agree? Go down in the comment box, let me know. Put the word I agree down. All right? And he also said this, that great physical therapists are the ones who learn from other people's mistakes. Do you agree with that? Because that's what we're doing here today, is we're taking all of the mistakes that other people have made so that you can avoid those pitfalls, get faster improvements, better improvements, and dominate this NPTE. Sounds good? So we're going to be a part of the great physical therapist group because we're going to learn from other people's mistakes today. Let's freaking get it. All right, so I really want to step into our first one, which was identify point potentials, tell you all about that and how to get this score improvement. All right, so let me ask you, what is the fastest way for you to raise your PEAT scores, your NPT score? What do you believe that to be? Well, here's what a lot of people believe, and a mistake that I found a lot of people make, including myself. I did the same thing. Most of us chase these big jumps and this passing score of a 600, which ultimately lead to just you feeling disappointment and you seeing minimal improvement. How many times have you taken a practice exam and your score seemed to not move much at all? Maybe it dropped a few points. Maybe it went up a couple, right? But it stayed about the same. How many have had that problem? I would say that is super common. So you're not alone if you're saying yes to that. And why? Because most students chase the big jumps. But like I said, it leads to disappointment and minimal improvement. Now, here's what great physical therapists are doing. The ones that are seeing the improvements on the NPTE, they're passing, they're looking for steady, consistent gains of 3 to 5%. Because they understand that 3 to 5% compounds and it leads to larger score gains. Now, it might not be the sexiest thing to just see your score go up by 3%. But these small wins over time is what actually leads to these amazing score improvements. All right. So really avoiding this, oh yeah, just gonna go in and try to get the best score and this really high score. And if I don't get it, I feel disappointed in myself. Instead of doing that, looking for these small wins. So the question is, all right, I want to raise my score fast, but like, how do I really do that? Well, it's called point potentials. Again, if your pencil and paper is not out right now, you definitely need to pull it out. Identify point potentials. So what are they? Point potentials are going to be these indicators that are on your exam report. And I'm going to show you one today. And these point potentials, they show the greatest return on study time. Like when you put an hour of time in, we want that thing to translate to 5, 10 more questions right. That would be amazing, right? Well, these point potentials are indicators that show you exactly where you can find that. All right, so they're super, super beneficial. And many people have never been taught that. Okay, so the overall goal for you right now is to be able to identify and study in these high yield areas, the ones that have the most point potentials. So put that down. And you don't have to guess. I know right now you may be looking at your PEAT report just like I was and like, all right, I guess MSK is down, or I didn't do so good on other systems, so I guess I'll study in that today. But then your score doesn't move, and it's because you're lost as to what is going to make the biggest difference. What gives you the biggest bang for your buck? Does that make sense? And again, you don't have to guess on this. Your PEAT reveals them, and I'm going to show you exactly how to find it. And then so identify your point potentials is the big thing here, because that's going to help us get the fastest gains. And what's that percentage that we want to see as an improvement each time? 3 to 5%, 3 to 5%. Again, not sexy, but it compounds and leads to amazing score improvements. Now be careful. Avoid doing what a lot of us do, including myself when I started. You know what? I was looking at the big three, MSK, neurocardio, and I was like, oh, those are the areas I need to focus on. Well, you got to be careful, because that may not be the places that you can get the most amount of points back or the fastest improvement. We need to use data, point potentials, to verify that. So you want to take a quick example of this, point potentials? We'll pull out your PEAT report if you have it. And of course, you could do this with other practice exams as well. We have practice exams here at the PT Hustle that you can utilize, and it gives you a breakdown like this. And you can go through here. So what are point potentials? Point potentials are going to be the difference. Well, let me pull out my pen. It's going to be the difference between the total items and then the items correct. So here you can see this person got a 507. Now, this video is not here to tell you what you should be scoring right now. This is just an example. All right, so don't look at that score and be like, oh, I'm behind or I'm ahead. That's not the point of this. Okay, so physical therapy examination, what we do is we take these two numbers, we're going to subtract them, and it's going to give us a point potential. All right, so as we look at this, we get 16. All right, if you do the math there. If you do the math here, you get 29. If you do the math here, what do we get? 16, 26. Okay, and we're going to hold off on non-systems. We're going to group that in with the other systems like MSK and cardio. Right now, we're just going to look at these three here. Okay, so you can see the one that has the most point potential is going to be eval. Eval is the place that we can get the fastest improvement in score because it has the highest. We're not saying that we don't study examination. We're just saying if we want to raise our score the fastest and start building that confidence and start getting momentum, that we need to focus more in eval and intervention. Does that make sense? Now, the reason why it isn't that beneficial to look at your scaled scores here is because your scale scores can lie to you and make you study things that actually won't give you the biggest bang for your buck. If you could see, this person got a 454. This student's name is Sarah. She got a 454 in intervention. So it looks like, oh, I'm awful with interventions. Oh my gosh. That's what I need to spend all my time in. I'm so bad. Well, hold on a minute. if we really look at it, right, your biggest point potential is an eval. It's 3 additional, meaning that I have a greater chance of increasing my score in this area than I do in interventions. We're not saying we won't look at interventions. It's just saying that, hold on, if we're just looking at scaled scores, it's going to cause you to study things that may not give you the biggest bang for your buck. And we're all about fast improvements, 3 to 5% each exam, compounding, so that you start gaining that momentum, all right? So there you go. We went through point potentials. Do this for yourself. You can pause this video if you're on replay. Do this for yourself and find yours. And what I want you to do is prioritize it. So in that situation, now we would have 1, all right? That would be our first priority, followed by 2. And then 3 would be examination for Sarah's. Now, I'm going to show you something really cool about Sarah because she implemented strategies based on this information, and wait till you see what happened, all right? But before we do that, let's go to the systems really quick. So here are her systems. Let's do our point potentials. So point potential here is 13. She has 20 here. And then let's see, this is 18. All right, this is 6. You gotta check my math a little bit. All right, and this is 14. And then we also saw that non-systems up there. If you had did the math over there, it was non-systems 14. Okay, so again, we want to find where can we get the most amount of points, the fastest. And your scaled scores or even your percentages will lie to you and have you going and studying things that, yeah, you need to work there, but they're not going to get you the momentum you're looking for. All right, so if we look at that. Again, this was what? 13. We had non-systems was 14. All right, this was 20. This was 18. This was 6, and this was 14. So as we're looking at it, MSK is our top priority. So I would put a 1 there. I would ask you to do the same. Now, yours may be completely different. Maybe you have a 1 under other systems. So do this for yourself and not exactly here with Sarah's, all right, because yours is going to be different. All right, and then 2 is her second because she's 18. On neuro, we put a 2 there. Okay, what's the next one? Well, we have 2 14s. So we can go ahead and strike that either way. I'm going to put a 3 for other systems, a 4 for non-systems. Okay, follow me through. Cardio is 13, so we're going to put a 5 there. And then 6 is going to go under integumentary and lymphatics. All right, so now we've listed out our 6 areas, 6 priorities. We got MSK, neuro, cardio, all of them laid out, and we have our numbers beside them. Now, this is going to be very important for the next step. And let me show you something really quick. So we had Sarah do this exact thing, figuring out where her priorities are. She implemented the strategies we're going to be talking about today. Let me show you something. So initially, she had that 507, if you remember. We did a 30-day checkpoint with her. She went up to a 554. Is that a super sexy score? No, but it's a nice improvement from where she was previously. Well, we tracked her for a 60-day, 75-day checkpoint, and then a 90-day checkpoint. Now look at her score as she was about to go right into the NPTE. Now she's scoring a 639. Much better, much more confident. She walked in and she ended up passing the NPTE with a 644. All right, so it goes to show you if we want to see that compounding increase, what we want to focus on is finding which areas are going to give us the most amount of points back. And if you really think about it, the area that gives you the most amount of points back, when you start to see your score increasing when you're putting in work, doesn't that just build more confidence, momentum, desire to continue studying? So then we just start seeing this thing snowball into more and more points. That's the name of the game. All right. So, of course, at this point, we figured out our priorities, but how do you build out a weekly schedule? All right. Well, if you did your priorities, you should be able to follow along with that. Your primary system. So you're going to have 2. You're going to have a primary system and you're going to have a secondary system. Let's go back really quick and let's show you how to find primary and secondary systems. All right. So we had non-systems, which was 14, right? We got 13 here. Musculoskeletal was 20. And so musculoskeletal, if you remember, that was a top one. We had that priority 1. That's going to be a primary. So you always have 4 primary systems and 2 secondary systems. How you find that is by your first 4 priorities. So neuro, we said was 18 here. This was 6. And this was 14. So if we look at it, let's track our first 4 priorities, 1, 2, and then we have non-systems and other systems, so 3, 4. So for this person, their 4 primary systems are going to be MSK, neuro, non-systems, and other systems. Their secondaries are going to be cardio and integ lymphatics. Okay. Now, when you're building out your weekly schedule, okay, let's take a look at it. For each week, you choose 1 primary system and 1 secondary system. So as an example for Sarah, what we had her do is for her first week, she did MSK because that was her primary system. And then she added in cardio, which is her secondary. And for her next week, she did neuro, which was one of her primaries. And then she added in lymphatics, which was secondary. You get the point here. 3 was other systems for her. That was one of her primaries. And then she added in integumentary. You get the point here, right? And so you choose 1 primary system, you choose 1 secondary system, and each week it's 1 primary, 1 secondary. That's it. Now you might say, like, wait, hold on a minute. Like, am I separating out the time in half? 1 primary, 1 secondary? Do I give them equal time? Here's the deal. You're doing your deep work with your primary system. That's where you're doing a lot of your learning and understanding. We'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. You're doing your deep work in your primary system. Your secondary is more of review and maintaining it. Don't worry, you'll get your time to go deep into that area. But for now, we're just keeping it warm. Almost like a pitcher in the bullpen. They're warming him up. He's not in the game yet, but they're warming him up on the back because he is going to be coming in at some point, he or she. So bottom line here, you only have 1 primary and 1 secondary each week. Never multiple primaries, because then it starts to overcomplicate things and lead to burnout. All right, so 1 primary, 1 secondary. There you go. Again, deep work in the primary, and then what do you do in the secondary? Yeah, it's more the warming it up, reviewing it, maintaining it. That's key. That's how we start to see 3 to 5% improvements, all right? Solid. So let's go to number 2. So number 1, the I was all about identifying. Now we need to target these things called principles. Now, when I was starting to study for the NPTE, I grabbed this big review book, and I was reading it cover to cover. I thought that that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm going page by page, forgetting the information because there's all these disconnected details there. It seemed like you had to know everything. But this is what I want you to know. The biggest mistake that a lot of us make is believing that the NPTE is this huge mountain that we need to climb and we're starting off at the bottom. Absolutely not. How do we know? Well, your PEAT has shown you that you're not at the bottom of the mountain. You didn't get a 0%. You might have even gotten a 20, a 30, a 40. Maybe you got a 50%. So you're likely already halfway or more to your goal. What we need to do is focus on what are the specific things that we need to address to work our way up that mountain. But you don't need to start all the way at the bottom because you're not there. So here's the thing. Instead of trying to study all the random details, let's find these things called principles that the NPTE is testing you on. Because let me tell you, less than 10% of the NPTE is going to be these like random little facts, recall of these little facts. The majority of it is reasoning and understanding the why and being able to decide between two. It's not just basic recall. All right. You have very few of those questions where it's like, okay, L4 dermatome is, right? You'll have some. But again, not the vast majority. And so we got to keep that in mind that the NPTE is testing us on principles and not on random facts. Okay. So I kind of think about it like a supermarket or a grocery store. I know you've gone into the grocery store before, just like all of us, we go in there. And sometimes if you don't have a list, I would say a lot of times, if you don't have a list, you're walking into that thing, you end up buying more and taking home more than what you needed, right? So I look at the NPTE as if it's a grocery store. You're walking in, there's all these different types of pasta, all these different types of fruit, meat, dairy, everything. And you could try to go in there and get all of it. But the problem is you end up leaving things drop out of your hands when you're going through the aisle, dropping off the buggy. But the worst part is you get everything home. You stuff it into parts of the refrigerator in the back or in a cabinet somewhere, and guess what? You forget about it. Forget that it's there. It goes rotten. It goes bad. Point here is it's out of sight, out of mind. And when you're asked questions about it, you can't recall it. You can't bring it to the front because you don't even know if you have that anymore. It's lost. So going into the NPTE supermarket that has all of this different stuff is overwhelming. And by you trying to get everything, you end up getting nothing. That's the point, right? Your score ends up staying the same. So instead of us trying to get everything, we need to figure out exactly what you need to get. And I call that high yield. You hear me? High yield topics specifically for you. So let me give you an example. The NPTE loves to hit on these principles, and they have multiple questions that hit on the same principle. I had a student not too long ago that had reached out, and they had taken now 12 practice exams, all these different companies everywhere, right? And they were like, now I'm starting to see after all this time that there's a lot of these questions that keep showing up. They're testing the same thing. They're just asking it in a different way, but they're really testing the same thing. And I was like, boom, you nailed it. That's called principles, right? And so the NPT does this all the time. One of the examples is lower motor neuron versus upper motor neuron. Come on, baby. I know you've heard of that before, like your peripheral nerve injuries versus a stroke. Like they present two different ways, right? Well, the NPTE loves to test on lower motor neuron versus upper motor neuron. Examination findings, what you expect to see, what you don't expect to see. So they can literally have on your next NPTE 5 to 8 questions that are just testing you on your understanding of lower motor neuron versus upper motor neuron. Isn't that amazing that you could study in an area and raise your score by 5 questions? Now, is that not a nice big bang for your buck? Well, if you didn't know that, and you didn't know that was an area you need to study in, maybe you did touch on it, but you didn't go deep enough, and you truly don't understand it, so then you end up getting those questions wrong repeatedly. That's the thing that holds people back. Now, let me give you another one that could easily be, again, 5 to 8 questions on your next NPTE in both musculoskeletal and neuro, and that is muscle imbalances, all right, or neuromuscular imbalances. So where muscles are tight and other muscles are weak, and how that changes posture, what muscles need to be stretched versus strengthened. That concept, that principle there can be applied all across the body. And so it's a major principle that gets hit on multiple times. So digging into that, solidifying that area can rapidly boost your score by 5 more questions. All right, just a couple examples there, but guess what? There are tons of principles just like this that you're likely missing. And when you pull this stuff out, that's when you start seeing massive changes in your score. All right, so the fastest way to reduce burnout and fatigue is by studying less. How do you study less? By finding exactly what you need to study, called high yield topics. All right, high yield principles. Good. So that's number 2, baby. We're going to hit number 3. I hope you're ready for this. Again, pen and paper out, write this down. Master concepts to dramatically improve retention. This goes without saying, but I got to say it. It's so key that a lot of us try to memorize the material, just like me, lab values. You got term tones, monotones. You just try to memorize all this. You try to get mnemonics or acronyms for everything. But the problem is, like I said, less than 10% of your NPTE is going to be, give me this fact, this one fact. No, they require that you know that fact, and they're going to build on it with questions. They're going to layer the question where you have to use reasoning. So that's what this comes down to. This is so big. Reasoning versus rationales. So let me give you an approach. So what I did in the beginning was I started studying for the exam. My approach was, all right, I'm going to go through the review book, but I'm going to take practice exams and go through the rationales. Well, the problem with that is it's almost like the exam is giving you the fish, but not teaching you how to fish. So if we switch the question up on you, you're not going to be able to reason through it. And I kept getting questions wrong. On my first therapy ed, I got a 45%. On my second therapy ed, I got a 47.5%. It's like I wasn't moving. Things weren't really changing much for me. I was getting stuck, and then I went back down to a 45%. So here's the thing. By just reviewing rationales, all we're really doing is memorizing the material, and it's a form of passive studying. The NPTE is not going to word it like that rationale when it comes down to the test. They're going to switch it up. And unless you will know how to fish, aka clinically reason through it, you're going to end up falling short. And that's why reasoning, understanding the whys. So number 3 today is master concepts. That's what improves retention. That improves your ability to recall and drop the information when they're asking for it. So how do you do that? That's by asking yourself more the when and the why questions. Why is it this intervention over this one? Why is it this pathology that shows up? Why are these signs and symptoms present for this? Getting that understanding allows you to fish for yourself regardless of how they ask the question. So bottom line, if I was going to take something away from this and keep this as just my principle for studying, score increases come from retained information and information in your brain that's applicable. Score increases do not come from acronyms and memorized material. It's almost negligible because there's so many questions that are not just straight random facts or asking about that. All right. So bottom line here, just to nail that, hours does not equal points. Like the number of hours that you're putting into this NPTE process, you're studying, you're doing hour after hour after hour, and you're like, yeah, I'm putting all this time in, that doesn't actually equal points on the NPTE. And I feel like Denzel Washington was the one who I heard really like nail this down. He said, don't confuse movement with progress. You can run in place and not get anything done. And that is so the NPTE. I have people that have been studying for the NPTE for 2 years and they haven't passed, mostly because they're running in place. They're doing the same thing. They're memorizing the material. They're trying, but they're not hitting the mark. So just because you're studying long hours, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting closer to passing the exam. It's all about identifying, targeting, and mastering. That's what it is. Denzel, appreciate you. All right, you know what? I really want to bring this part up because if we really want to solidify this and we want to really raise your score fast, I think it's really important that you understand this. And something that happened to me that shook me during PT school. All right, so first, before I even get into that, treat the PEAT as a data point, not a verdict. You know, okay, so let me give you the story. So I was preparing for the NPTE for 14 months, putting all this time in. You would think that I'm ready for this thing, right? Well, like we said, hours don't equal points, right? So anyway, I heard from my faculty, hey, you need to pass your retired PEAT. The retired PEAT is it. If you pass that thing, it's looking good for you. If you don't, you probably shouldn't take the NPTE because you're likely to fail. That's what we were hearing. That was a big thing. And so I went into this retired PEAT 7 days before my NPTE. This was going to be like my, okay, I'm ready to take the exam. All right, now watch this. So I go into this retired PEAT. I'm doing my absolute best. I click submit at the end of the exam, and guess what pops up in front of my face? What score do you think I got? Go ahead, put that down in the comment box. If you're on replay, drop it. What do you think? I got a 570. Literally a 570 on my retired PEAT 7 days before the NPTE. Now, a 570 isn't like an awful score, but it's not really that close. Like, I still have to do quite a bit of work. And as we know with standardized testing, our scores stay about the same. It really does, like, unless you do something dramatically different. And so I got that 570. I was shook. It's like, what do? I have 7 days? What difference is this going to make? Well, you remember when I told you that I learned about this holistic method, right? Well, I dug my heels into that. I was like, no, I got to take this exam. I scheduled it. All my classmates are taking it. I want to lock in. I want to take this exam. And in that 7 days, I implemented wholeheartedly that holistic method. I went all in on it. So I go into the NPTE. I take it head held high. I'm confident. I'm like, I'm going to make this thing happen. I don't know how I'm going to get another 30 scale points, but I'm going to make this happen, right? So I go in there. I take the exam. Well, guess what? 6 days later, 7 days later, we get our results back. I pass it. I was through the roof. I was going crazy. Like, what? This is nuts. I get to be a physical therapist. It's over, right? It was such an amazing just weight lifted off. Well, what was crazy is 10 days later, I end up getting my score back. And it was a score report. They send it to you. It's absolutely free. And I open it up. I look at it, and it's a perfect 800. And in that moment, I was in so much disbelief. It took me a while to really like, what the heck just happened? I went from a 570 to an 800 7 days later. How does that happen? There's no way I got all that content in my brain, studied 3 years of information in 7 days. Can't be content. What else? Well, what I've come to find over my 12 years of doing this, passionate, helping students, learning from them, all the data we've collected, is that this holistic method is what I implemented in that 7 days that raised my score 230 scale points. And content is a part of it. Yeah, definitely. But content is reliant on your test taking skill. Your content is only good as your test taking ability. If your test taking ability is not good, you're not a good test taker, well, then you could be Albert Einstein and not pass the exam. Does that make sense? And then your test taking is reliant on your health. Health being the sleep that you got, the energy that you have. You know, when you're just like not had a good night and you feel sluggish the next day, well, then it doesn't matter how good your test taking skill is or how smart you are. You still end up not passing. Your score ends up not moving. So test taking and content are reliant on health. Well, health is reliant on your mindset. If you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail this exam. You know, those 3 questions were super tough. I know this is going to be the reason why I fail. Well, doesn't that zap your energy, that drains you during the exam? Well, then that means that you're only as good as your mindset. Your score is only as good as your mindset. And then last but not least, the spiritual realm, your state of groundedness. If you're having high anxiety, if you feel super overwhelmed during the exam and difficulty with focusing, well, then your mindset's likely not going to be great. You're going to be zapped of all your energy. You're not going to be able to focus on your test taking. And last but not least, you're not likely to be able to recall the information well. So that means that somebody who's Albert Einstein, the ability to get the top score ever and know all the information, let's say that person did exist. then that means that they're only as good as these lower parts of their pyramid. Does that make sense? So let me give you a really cool story. Just recently, I had somebody reach out. Scores were not doing well. They were consistently getting into the low to mid 500s. They just couldn't break out of that zone no matter how hard they studied, how hard they worked. Well, we worked them through an eval, like an NPTE eval process to figure out, okay, what's going on. We were finding that it was more about the nutrition that they were eating before the exam and in the break time. So we were messing around with their pacing and their nutrition. Well, less than a week later, they reach back out to us. They say that now they're at like a 640. So they went up like 100 scale points plus in a matter of less than a week. All focused on that green zone there. More the health, the nutrition, the sleep, the pacing, the fatigue, the endurance. Like that's what we were really focusing on. So it goes to show you that it's not just about your content that can raise your score. These other areas, this holistic approach is what can help you destroy the NPTE. So hopefully that resonates with you. And if so, go down in the comment box. What other areas do you feel like you need to work on that can help you raise your score? Maybe your test taking ability, that's super common. Put that down. Maybe it's your health, your nutrition, your sleep, your social health, your exercise. Maybe it's mindset for you or spiritual groundedness. Go ahead and put that down in the comment box. Which other ones do you feel would make the biggest impact? Okay. As a bonus today, what I really want to do real quick is, can we talk about clinicals? Because some of you are having a busy lifestyle, whether you're working after you've taken the NPTE and maybe you failed it and you're working now and you're trying to prepare, or maybe you're in school. Here are just some quick things to give you a quick bonus on what you can do. Number one is this: protect your sleep, your meals, and your gym time. Protect them. That's like sacred recovery time. The reason why most of us burn out, we fatigued, we're not retaining the information is because we use all of our sacred time as studying for the NPTE. I love you guys who are listening to my stuff. You know, you're in the gym and you're listening to the podcast. That's great, man. That's great. You're getting the time in. I get that. But that gym should be there for you to re-energize and work on yourself and get that energy back so that when you do sit down to study, you got the energy for it. Does that make sense? Protect your sleep, protect your meal time. Those are there to pour into you so that when it's time to ask of you, there's energy there. All right, so those are called my non-negotiable sacred times where I'm building energy, not draining it. Use your commute and your weekends for this short focus blocks. If you're in the car, pop in that NPTE Clinical Files podcast. We'll talk about that here in a moment on our resources slide. Yeah, that's the time. You can utilize that. And the weekends, don't do these long hours. We know the brain doesn't retain well when it's sitting there for long periods of time. Short focus blocks is how we retain the most. All right, and last but not least, if you are on clinicals, or maybe you failed the NPTE and you're working full time right now, leverage your environment. Utilize it. If you're in a neuro environment, go hard on that neuro. Make sure you're utilizing your coworkers, your CI to really go through dermatomes, myotomes, all those different things that you're struggling with as your high yield topics. That's what you're using your clinical time for. That way, you're just getting the most amount out of the time that you're spending. Bottom line, utilize your environment to leverage, to get yourself closer to dominating the NPTE. And then save your sacred time to energize yourself. Don't drain yourself during that because it leads to burnout. All right, leave your takeaway down there in the comment box. I got some really special things for you right now because I know a lot of you are like, hey, I want to dominate this NPTE. I need some assistance. I need some guidance. For those of you who do need some guidance, stick around for a minute because I got some resources I want to show you. And then I have an option to help you get more of a holistic approach. Sounds good? All right, so let's take a look at the resources We have a Facebook community, absolutely free, weekly NPTE strategy and inspiration. So if you're looking for guidance, join us over there, all right? It's a really supportive group, nptegroup.com. Go ahead and request access. We'll get you in there. We're in there every single week. Number two, if you're not listening already, listen to the NPT Clinical Files podcast. I'm going through practice questions that are likely to show up on the real NPTE. I'm going over real things, all right, that easily translate over. So this is a way that if you're in the car or maybe doing some chores, whatever it is, you could pop that in and get some more score improvements, all right? And then free cheat sheets. So we have free cheat sheets. You go to nptecheatsheets.com. I'll go ahead and link all of this down below in the description. Go ahead and check that out. That's free 10 cheat sheets right there. This is a fast way to absorb and retain high quality, high yield concepts. All right. I've had multiple people. You could check our reviews on the PT Hustle Google page. We have multiple people saying, hey, this really was a game changer. Listening to the podcast. These same things were coming up on the NPTE. We have people still saying that about the cheat sheets as well. All right. So go ahead, grab those. These are all free resources available to you. Now, for those of you who want to take everything we learned today and you want a fast way to build a schedule, you want to work on test strategy, you want to get yourself to the point where you feel super confident walking into the NPTE saying, I did everything I needed to do. One of the holistic programs, actually the only one out there, is our review course here at the PT Hustle. Structured, it's flexible. I like to call it our turnkey option because it really has everything that you need to dominate the NPTE. So it's guidance all the way through, from identifying exactly what you need to focus on, all the principles that you need to focus on to get the improvement. It's right there. Lecture videos to minimize, if you're not a reader, helps you minimize the reading. All right, deeper understanding, which is super big. A lot of programs out there, a lot of resources are there to give you superficial understanding. But remember, the NPTE isn't going to test you a lot on the random little details or the superficial acronyms. They really want you to understand it and have the reasoning. That means you require deeper understanding. And that is our teaching style. All right. And when you learn that, let me tell you, it improves both confidence in yourself, and when you go out into practice, you're much more confident in your reasoning. And last but not least, we help pull out the principles that the NPTE is testing on so you can start to increase your score. The big thing is fast. The faster we increase the score, the more momentum you have and the more desire you have to continue to study. And that's what we want. We want to put you in that cycle. All right. So there you go, 100% review course. This is the only holistic program out there. We get amazing results. You can check us out also on Google. Now, if there's something that you're interested in, I'm going to drop this in the description below. Reach out to our team. We'd love to talk to you to see if this program is a good fit and actually give you a walkthrough to make sure it's a good fit. All right. So reach out to us. I'll go ahead and drop my number below. And if you want to go automatically to the website, you can check it out there as well. nptecourse.com. All right. It's been an absolute pleasure tonight. And also for those of you who are listening here today and you're like, hey, I'm just looking for just some assistance to help us out. Some additional resources, you can always text us, all right? I have my assistants here to work with you to make sure that you get everything that you need, all right? So our number's there, 727-732-4573. You know, one of the quotes that I kind of want to hit before we leave out, and you've seen this before, it's by Denzel Washington, don't confuse movement with progress, all right? Just because you're doing the thing, that doesn't necessarily mean you get to the pass. You have to be doing the right things. And we talked about the ITM method today. We talked about identifying the specific things that you need to be doing. Identifying the point potentials and where you need to focus your time. Targeting the principles that the NPT keeps asking about. The ones where they ask 5 questions about that one thing. So that you can avoid burnout and fatigue. And then the M is master the concepts. Don't just skim them and be superficial. Truly understand them, master them. So regardless of how the NPT asks the questions, boom, you know how to dominate it. All right, there you go, right there, ITM method. I want you to go ahead, leave your takeaways down there in the comment box. What's your takeaways? Go ahead, put that down. Would love to absolutely hear them. Again, if you're somebody who is looking for a holistic program, we got that here for you as well. I want to see what your biggest takeaway is. And of course, I'll put up the slide here with the holistic pyramid, right? Maybe your takeaway is content related, more the ITM that we were talking about. Maybe it's, I need to spend time in test taking. I need to spend time in health. Mindset. Yep, that negative mindset. It keeps creeping up on me. That's something that I know is holding me back. Or spiritual. Go ahead and drop those down. We'd love to help you come through those. All right. So again, drop your takeaways. If you need any assistance, we're here for you. 727-732-4573. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure to serve you all today. Again, reach out when you need that help, and we'll talk to you soon.